Hi everybody, this is Steve Peha. Welcome to The Art of the Start. Creating beginnings that pull readers in and make them want to read more. You'll notice that this is the teacher's edition. There will be a student's edition of this in which all the talking that I do will be directed toward kids. This is the one for you. It'll have a lot of extra information in it. I hope I don't bore you too much, but I think there's some really good background that would help you use this material more effectively in class. This is a big, well, let's see, you see that big number 1 over there on the right? This is part 1 of 3. This is a big long unit on teaching beginnings, and it's in 3 parts, each with 8 lessons. You certainly don't need all 24 lessons, so you might want to look at all 3 of these when they're out and pick and choose the lessons that make the most sense for you. As I said, this is a teacher's edition. You'll find a companion student edition that you can just play for your kids when I put it out in a couple of weeks. This is Be a Better Writer. This is the recent book my wife and I have written for kids. We've won some awards we're really excited about. Got some great reviews from people like Vicki Spandell that we're really proud of. And a lot of schools have bought the book, a lot of teachers have bought it, and we're just really, really excited. It includes information about all kinds of writing, and we think it's just a great start for kids and for teachers too. So welcome. Thank you for your interest in my work. We created it for the following reasons: to provide teachers with classroom-proven resources they can use with little or no time needed for preparation. That's true. When you get the student version, you'll just be able to pop that right up and teach a lesson. Number 2, to provide students with real-world knowledge and skills they can use all their lives. Also true. All of these leads come from real writing by real people, and these are exactly the same kinds of beginnings that writers use their entire lives. So this is lifelong learning. Number 3, to improve the quality of the work we do based on feedback from the people who use it. That's you. As you apply these ideas in your work, let me know how I can help you make them work better. That's how this stuff gets better. I hear from you guys, and that's how we work together. You can contact me anytime at stevepeha@ttms.org, and I look forward to hearing from you. So I really want you to use this. Just follow a couple simple rules. You may use this work in PDF or video form for non-commercial purposes only. Non-commercial purposes is really simple. Is anybody making money? You, an organization, etc.? Then you can't use this. But if you're not making money, if you're teaching class, if you're giving training in your district, it's just part of your normal job, you go ahead and use this. It's non-commercial in my opinion. Download the PDF version of this work from its source URL only. If you look down at the bottom, you'll see this long thing that starts HTTPS. That's the source URL of the PDF document. That's where it lives. You can't download the video. It'll be on YouTube. And you may also share the PDF version of this work, but only from its source URL only. So pass the URL only. Pass it around to anybody. Don't pass the document itself. Thank you. You may not transmit this work, PDF or video, or its contents by any means. You may not use this work or its contents in any paid consulting or training. You may not modify this work or its context in any way. And you may not include this work or its contents in any other work. Thanks for sitting through this little bit of the rules. I really do want everybody to use it. I just don't want to find another piece of my work on Teachers Pay Teachers being sold by somebody else. That happens a little too often. I know none of you would ever do it, but oftentimes it happens just because people don't know that it's mine. Somebody gave it to them, and it didn't have a little thing on it like this. So no harm, no foul. Just pass the URL around and watch the video whenever you want to. Thank you. So here we go. What's going to happen next and why should you care about it? Part 1, why beginnings matter more than we think. Kids may not know how much beginnings matter in their writing. We know as readers, and kids know as readers too. So I want to connect them with that as much as possible. But the one thing that we all have to keep in mind is that kids are writing relatively short pieces. And the shorter a piece is, the more the beginning matters, oddly enough. You have a readership that is just flooded with media these days. And if you don't grab their attention right at the beginning, they're not going to want to read on, even if a piece is fairly short. So I want kids to be really aware that the beginning is really important. Now, the way this unit works is you'll always see the main part of the lesson up on the top here, but be just below the platen on the, I think that's what that is, those two little rollers there. I think you'll see a little question or two in gray, all caps, and that's kind of the guiding question for the particular lesson. Right away, I want to ask kids, why do you think beginnings matter so much? Or do they even matter much at all? What I hope to get kids to understand is that beginnings matter more than any other part of a piece of writing. Because if readers don't like the beginning, they're not going to read the middle or the end. So beginnings really make a big difference. The other reason beginnings matter more than we think is because every part of every piece of writing needs a beginning. It's not something we're conscious of, but if you look at a magazine article, you look at a piece on the web, almost everything is broken up into sections nowadays. Short, snackable is the word that is often used. Short, snackable sections. And you'll notice that each one has a pretty good beginning. So beginnings matter a lot more than we think. So every piece of writing has a beginning, and working to master the art of the start is one of the best investments writers make. It truly is. If this was all your kids did for an entire year, you'd actually be able to teach them to write really effectively. Why? Because if you wrote 20 beginnings for a piece, you'd probably end up able to cobble several of them together to get a great start. I've had kids write 5, 6, 7 beginnings for a piece and be able to use most of them somewhere. So beginnings are a great investment of time and effort. There's no getting around it. Every time you write something, you write a beginning. Unless you intend to specialize in the fine art of composing grocery lists, you'll want to get good at writing good beginnings. If you only want to work on one thing to make your writing more effective, work on mastering the art of the start. Trust me, it'll pay off big. Not winning the lottery big, but bigger than you think. Stick with me for a while here, and you'll see what happens. A clever ploy, or is it too clever for its own good? She had done it. She had written a non-beginning, an ellipsis, brilliant. With 3 dots, she elegantly conveyed the fact that something was missing, the beginning of her piece. Too risky for something so important, or just risky enough to show that this was something special? Go ahead, turn it in, I taunted. Dare ya? This is something I made up. I wanted to show a very unconventional beginning and talk to kids about how far you can go at the top to either catch people's attention or throw them off. I thought of this as one of those really provocative and interesting beginnings to a college entrance essay. Those essays are almost all the same, and when I work with kids on this, I tell them that pretty much everybody's going to be having about the same types of topics, and pretty much everybody's going to write about the same length of essay. So your beginning is where you can really catch somebody's attention, and this is a very clever beginning, starting with nothing. So the big question is, what are the risks associated with being clever in your opening? What are the rewards? And I want kids to try cleverness, but there is a big risk. Sometimes we're too clever for our own good. That is to say, I could put the 3 dots up there, start the next line, and somebody may not realize what is going on here at all, and it may be very off-putting. And when you're on a high stakes piece, like something for a test or an admittance entrance essay to a university, you may not want to take that bigger risk. Then again, bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. And the reward is very simply that people think you're different in a good way. And that's usually how we set ourselves apart from the crowd. So get a hit right off the bat. Most readers start at the top. Why not wow them when they're most wowable? And that's true. The best chance you have to catch your reader's attention and really use it is right at the beginning. So always remember the 112th rule of writing. When in doubt, use a sports metaphor. It's the opening pitch on opening day. Knock it out of the park and the crowd will go wild. They'll remember you forever, which is exactly what you want. Strike out and you're just another K on the scorecard. Momentarily embarrassed, instantly forgotten. This is the show. Don't ride the pine. Take your readers for a ride over the center field fence instead. A moment they'll never forget. Give your readers something memorable at the beginning and they'll stick with you to the end. There are plays and there is that play. There are moments captured in pictures and clipped into highlight reels, but that play is burned into your brain like no other. Willie Mays made that play. It's known simply as the catch. No matter how many times you watch it, it still doesn't seem real. Oh, to have been there on that day, to have seen it with one's own eyes, to have caught the catch. This is the beginning of a piece that's referring to one of the most famous plays in all of Major League Baseball history. It is called The Catch, and it was, I think, I don't remember whether it was the New York Giants then or the San Francisco Giants, but Willie Mays was out in center field, and Vic Wertz, I think from Cleveland, hit a ball with a runner on third base, and he hit it so deep that Willie just had to take off running all the way back to the warning track. And usually when that happens, the runner can score from third very, very easily without the throw coming in to get him at the plate, let alone over someone's head. But in some miracle fashion, Willie Mays catches the ball at the farthest end of the stadium and kind of in the same motion turns and throws it right to home plate and catches the guy out from third. It's the most amazing play I've ever seen. I know you can find it on YouTube. I probably should have put it here for you. But in any case, this is the kind of beginning. It's 3 paragraphs, 3 short paragraphs. It's not just one line or one paragraph. It really sets up the story with a moment that people will never forget. So the question is, how does this beginning set up its readers to remember something they will never forget? Well, one of the things it does, other than have the subject matter be about that, one of the things it does is it puts off the important part of the lead until the very end. So there's plays and there's that play. Willie Mays made that play. It's known as the catch. But the real emotional part is, to have been there on that day, to have seen it with one's own eyes, to have caught the catch. And your reader's been waiting for this, and now they know what it's about. They may know about the catch, they may not. This is when you've got them, but they've already read quite a bit, and there's quite a bit of repetition here. That play, the catch, etc. So there's a pretty good chance your audience is going to remember this, even if they don't like the piece that much. So respect your reader's attention. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. That's a cliche, but like many cliches, it's also true. The beginning is your first chance to make an impression on the reader, and first impressions really matter in writing now more than ever. Readers are busy people, just like you. It takes time and effort to read your work. People have to stop whatever else they're doing, give you their full attention. Their attention is a gift. Thank them for it by giving them a beginning that lets them know how much you appreciate and value their generosity. In today's media-saturated world, it's hard to get and hold anyone's attention. When you have it, don't waste it. You may never get it back. Attention! Forward march! The strongest beginnings move their readers forward with commanding prose. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. In his first inaugural address, his first official words to the nation as President of the United States, John F. Kennedy seized the moment and the minds of millions by commanding us toward a new way of thinking about the relationship between the government and the governed. We all remember that one. It's certainly the most well-known and most famous line from any presidential speech, really, certainly from any inaugural. And it really does inspire people. It inspired people then, and I think it even inspires people now. Certainly inspires me. So here's a question. What's the difference between commanding prose and demanding prose? One of the things I talk about to kids is that they may write things that are very complicated and very dense, and that's just fine. I'm all for it. But at the beginning, we probably don't want to write something that demands so much of the reader. We may want to write something that simply commands them to go forward. And I think the Kennedy's inaugural opening up here with that quote is pretty good in that regard. It's easy to follow. We all know what it means. And it doesn't make too large a demand on us. It just commands us to move forward. Use your opening to open a door. Unlock your reader's intellect and emotions. Open their minds to your ideas. Why write something readers already know? Why not tell them something new? Because sometimes your readers won't understand you, and many times they won't even like you. We all have existing knowledge and feelings that let the known in and keep the unknown out. Knock on your reader's door. Be respectful. Don't be a nuisance. And don't try to knock the door down in your very first sentence. Let readers invite you in. Change a mind, change the world. Change is vital. It's the way we survive, but it's also hard and often painful. This is a cautionary comment I often make to kids about persuasive writing. It's very hard to change people's minds, especially with words. But there's an interesting perspective on change that I also like to share with them. Change isn't hard. Maintaining change is. As I write this sentence, I'm an A student, but will I maintain that level of quality? If we don't take this in-process view of change over time, we put ourselves through a tiresome cycle. Commit to change, break the commitment, recommit, repeat until we're too discouraged to commit any longer because we know that the most likely outcome is breaking our commitment. So this is part of the notion of change. It's also a really good lead to a piece on a different way of looking at change. Change is instantaneous. Hey, I used to drink a liter of Coca-Cola every day. Now I'm not drinking Coca-Cola at all. I've changed. Well, the truth of the matter is I just didn't have a liter of Coca-Cola yesterday, and I'm probably not going to have one today. But it's today that really matters. It's maintaining the change that makes the difference. So change is really a process. It's not switching something on. So here's the question. What happens when you challenge a reader's existing knowledge or deeply held beliefs? This is a hard one. It's really, really hard to understand because it is, by its nature, unintuitive. But think about it this way. If someone holds a really strong belief about something and they get to the point where they believe it so strongly they feel that it's tied in some way to their survival or the sense of themselves as a good person or something they hold deeply sacred, then anything we say to them that doesn't fit with that is largely going to be ignored. It's going to make people upset, or more likely it's going to cause a misunderstanding. Because if I mean one thing and you believe another thing, then my one thing can only be understood by you in the context of your other thing. This is called paradigm. I hold one paradigm about my life or the world. You hold a different paradigm about your life or the world. And by definition, anything from paradigm A can only be understood by someone with paradigm B inside of their paradigm. And in fact, I can only say things in paradigm A that go with my paradigm. This is often why people can't understand each other. We have to figure out some mechanism, some way of finding not common ground, but a shared overlapping part of our paradigms. It's called a lead for a reason. Your beginning leads readers into your piece and provides momentum that propels them forward. To a journalist, the beginning is called the lead. Your opening has to get your reader's attention, but it also has to lead them on into the piece itself. There's only one way to know if your lead works: see if readers follow it and end up reading more. Journalists can't know how a particular lead will play, so they often have many leads to play with. They also have editors to help them play better. That's how much the lead matters. And this is something that I really want kids to know too, and I'll just require it. I often require kids to do at least 3 leads for a piece, and to get some kind of feedback about which one or 2 or a combination of the 3 works best. Again, there's very little ever wasted by this, because if they like one lead better than the other, they can usually use the ideas from the other 2 later in the piece. It's not uncommon for journalists to think of 10 or 20 different ways to start a story. It's certainly not uncommon for novelists to start their own novels 10 or 20 times. So asking kids to write 3 leads really isn't much. And after a while, they kind of like it, because they get really good at it. Extra, read all about it. In the good old days when big news broke, big newspapers printed extra editions to get the word out fast. Washington, August 6th, AP. The most destructive force ever harnessed by man, atomic energy released by the disintegration of uranium, was unleashed today on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. A death toll in the tens of thousands has been estimated. The existence of this powerful new weapon was announced personally by President Harry S. Truman in a statement issued through the White House. That is pretty close to the first bit that ran in one of the many papers that I've seen over the years on August 6th. That was the way that we communicated back then from the government to the people. Today, it seems like we use Twitter. Although I do want us to look very carefully at this, and I want us to answer the question, is social media really the most responsible way to handle this kind of communication between a government and its citizens? In my opinion, it's not. Not at all. But that's just my opinion. It may be different for you. Here's the question. Regardless of your topic, how will you come up with something readers just have to know? In a lot of our writing, especially informational writing, like this, we sort of want to lead right up front with this most important thing people have to know. There's a simple reason why the traditional news story is written in that inverted pyramid format. They want the least important stuff way down at the bottom. They want the most important stuff right at the top. Why? Because there are usually many stories on a page, and people skim the newspaper to get all the best information they need. So if we did send a bomb to somebody and kill tens of thousands of them, that's probably the single most important piece of information that we want to know. We better get it in there fast. And that's a really good point for, as I said, for informational writing. It's also a pretty good point for persuasive and argumentative writing too. The lead is a hint. Why give all of your piece away at the beginning? Entice your readers to go and get it. Sometimes it makes sense to give away the story in the first few lines. Sometimes it doesn't. This is when the lead acts as a hint of more interesting things to come. The feeling you want your readers to have is a delicate balance of curiosity and confusion. While this approach doesn't play well in short pieces, it's perfect for long ones, of course, for fiction and narrative nonfiction as well. It's hard to resist a mystery. An interesting way to set up a good story is to leave something out that readers need to know. As the sun rose behind the castle, they made their escape into a nearby field. All seemed well until Harlequin stopped cold. There was something in the distance. Porcine, bovine, feline, and canine drew up from behind, waiting silently as their diamond-eyed leader made her assessment. "I think it's safe," Harlequin whispered, "but keep still. We don't want it to know we're here." So, I'm not even sure anybody can tell what the beginning is here. It sounds to me kind of like perhaps a fantasy or fairy tale situation, but also maybe some kind of paranormal mystery horror kind of thing. It's interesting though to me, and it's, I think, worth sticking around to read the rest, because there's something that these, I don't know, people, I guess, are trying to get away from. So think about this. How would you make this kind of beginning work in a non-fiction subgenre? This is really interesting. We often think that kids can't apply much from their fiction over to non-fiction writing, but I think they can. Really, the best non-fiction that I read is narrative non-fiction. And in a non-fiction piece, this might not have to be the beginning to a very long fantasy novel. It might just be an example of, or an anecdote, something small to start something off. I think if we would teach kids how to use narrative style writing to start non-fiction pieces, they'd produce much better work. They'd also be producing the kind of work that they'd be more inclined to read these days in some of our better magazines. The lead is a promise. The beginning of a piece is a promise to the reader that continuing to read will be a valuable experience. The beginning of a piece is a promise. If you liked what you just read, I promise you'll enjoy reading more. If you break this promise at any time, your reader will begin to lose trust in you and your work. Trust too many times broken leads to Trust too many times broken leads to bad feelings and unread words. I think I need a couple of commas in there. Trust too many times broken leads to bad feelings and unread words. If you save the best for last, give something good first, and then write better all the way to the finish. If you don't, your reader may never get to the place you want them to be. So there is sort of an implied promise in the beginning, and it's twofold. One, the piece will be more or less about what you think it might be about, and two, that it'll really be valuable reading the rest of it. And providing value to people is extremely important, even when you're just writing for your teacher. In fact, for us teachers who have to read hundreds or thousands of papers in a year, I always tell kids that it's even more important to provide value to their teachers, who often end up doing quite a lot of reading of their work. Is it a sure thing or a long shot? Every time readers pick up a text, they make a bet that the time and energy they spend will pay off. Gravity is one of the surest bets in the universe. What goes up must come down, except when it reaches escape velocity, of course. But eventually, gravity pulls everything into somewhere, or does it? Whether the story of Sir Isaac Newton and the apple is fact or apocrypha, it's easy to imagine fruit falling from a tree, inspiring one of science's most profound revelations. So how did Newton get it wrong? It's interesting, but when Newton discovered the law of gravity, he actually got it wrong. As Einstein, who got it right 250 or 300 words later, there is no spooky action at a distance. Big objects in the heavens don't pull on smaller objects. Gravity works, or seems to work that way, because large objects warp space. And I know that sounds a little Star Trek-y, but it's true. Check it out on Wikipedia or something, and you'll get the sense of why gravity works the way it does, why Newton got it just slightly wrong, and why it's okay to think about it in Newton's way. But if you want to really understand some interesting mysteries of the cosmos, try to understand how gravity really works. It's absolutely fascinating. So how do the questions in this passage encourage readers to read more? Well, I've set up 2 questions, and they're questions that are designed to plant doubt in a reader's mind. Everybody has an intuitive sense of gravity, or do they? Everybody knows the story of Isaac Newton and the apple falling from the tree, but it may not even be a story. It may not even be a real story. It may be apocryphal, as in made up or a myth. And then, even if we believe that, and even if we believe that that's how Newton discovered gravity, he got it wrong. So now I hope, with some doubt that I've sewn into the beginning here, that I can get the reader sometimes upset enough, or sometimes just curious enough to read on and see what I mean. The start is the most important part. This is where we started here. If readers don't like the beginning, they may not read the middle or the end. This is the most basic truth about beginnings. Yes, we all need those rich details buried inside, and we absolutely have to have a satisfying conclusion. Middles and ends matter, but not as much as beginnings, because if the beginning isn't good, many readers will refuse to go any farther. The goal is simple: to get the fastest start you can. Start faster than your readers can imagine. Start out in front, challenging them to keep up with you, so they won't stop until they've crossed the finish line too. Not too much to say about this, except that it's really, really true. And I love this picture because you can see the runners all starting off, but there's so much power in the stance of each runner there. And it's an angled shot, so I don't know that the guy farthest to the left is actually ahead of the guy to the farthest to the right. But you can definitely get that sense of the energy pulling everyone in the race, trying to catch up. And that's what I want kids to have: energetic leads that just pull their readers right through the pieces. It's out of this world. Imagine how hard it is for readers to ignore the unimaginable. Usain Bolt, synonymous hero of the 100, runs like no other man alive. That's because he runs like Superman. He produces more than 50 times the energy of a speeding bullet, said Oxford University physicist Dr. Isaac Newton. He may not only be the current record holder, he may hold the record forever, Dr. Newton continued. It may not be possible for human beings to run any faster. Isn't that interesting? We always talked about Superman running faster than a speeding bullet. Well, it turns out that Usain Bolt is just a human man, and he packs more than 50 times the energy of a speeding bullet into his amazing 100-yard dash. I don't think anyone is even really close. I think he's held the world record now for 8 or 12 years. It's unimaginable how fast he runs. It really is. So here's the question: how do you evoke the extraordinary when you're writing about the ordinary? This is a piece about a track star. It's not that amazing. So you've got to find some amazing little fact, some little tidbit, sometimes even a myth, sometimes even just a saying or a funny comment, something to turn the ordinary into the extraordinary. So here's the takeaway. Beginnings aren't just beginning. Every beginning you create might grow into something else. Did you notice something about all the model beginnings? Each is a beginning to something. Each could also be a section of something, and each stands on its own as a complete something, albeit a very short something. So, mastering the art of the start is really mastering the craft of producing consistently clear and compelling communication. But most folks just call it good writing. And this is the big point that I like to make to kids, is that sure, we're just talking about the beginnings, but if you can master writing a good one-sentence beginning, why can't you master writing a good one-paragraph beginning? And if you can master writing one good paragraph as a beginning, why can't you master writing 2 or 3 or 4 paragraphs as a good beginning? And if you can master that, why can't you put 3 or 4 sections of 3 or 4 paragraphs together into a really nice piece that's just as good every sentence of the way as your beginning is? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tagging along with me here. As I said, this was the teacher's edition. I'll have a student edition out for you shortly. It will be shorter, faster. I will correct punctuation errors, and I will read properly. Don't want your kids to get any bad habits from Mr. Peha. My company, as many of you know, is Teaching That Makes Sense. We give really good workshops. I'm doing some new formal training called PD for You. These are 2-day trainings. They're very inexpensive, but they're really high value. You get free books, you get visits from me to your classroom via Skype. So I'm hoping that you'll come to one of our transformative trainings called PD for You. And we're very, very good here at strategy. Now that's strategies for teaching, but it's also larger strategies for helping teams of people work together and helping schools and districts reach their goals. It's really important to think strategically when we're managing big, important things. But the most important thing I want people to know is that teaching that makes sense is not a method or a program. It's really just a discipline of inquiry that sharpens personal practice and nurtures a school-wide culture of transparency, teamwork, and trust. All I really want people to do, and let me make it very clear, I don't want you to teach like I do. That's not the goal. I want you to teach like you do. I just want to make sure that everything you do makes sense to you and makes sense to your kids. That's the only way it's going to work. It's the only way it's going to produce better results, extraordinary experiences, and sustainable progress. Teaching has to be sustainable. We can't wipe ourselves out with those long hours and reteaching and all the hard things we have to do. We need sustainable progress. And the way to do that is to ask yourself, does this make sense to me as I teach it? Does this make sense to the kids? Is it what they need? Is it what I want to teach them? Is it what I can teach best? Is it what they can learn best? All of these are just questions. And teaching that makes sense is just a discipline of asking these questions until we know for sure that something that makes sense. And there's really just 3 questions.